Wow, what a busy week. Oh my goodness. So tell me, what's happening?
Yeah, well, the
Uh,
last night was I couldn't sleep because my daughter in Jerusalem was telling me, "Baba, the war is back. Our schools are canceled, and the sirens are on, and so on." Also, we got calls from Jordan saying the projectiles are flying over Jordan, and then apparently the Israelis hit back. By the way, it's very interesting. There's a lot of misinformation about what Israel did. Israel did not bomb from its aircrafts. It actually sent a missile to these attacks because apparently the Iranians have already developed an anti-plane battery, so they're afraid to fly over Iran. I, Again, you hear what Trump said: we destroyed their anti-air missiles. Now, apparently, the Israelis are sending missiles from far away rather than flying over Iran. That's one thing. And the other thing is, even though Trump asked the Israelis not to retaliate, it seems that they took half of his advice, which is he advised them not to attack energy sources and bridges and so on. And they stressed in all their statements that we attacked military sites. So, which means that they normally don't attack military sites, but now the Americans are urging the Iranians not to respond, and we'll see. So far, they haven't responded, as far as I know. And I'll bet you the Iranians are smart enough to make the Americans pay for this. They will not respond in return, maybe for the Iranians, the Americans giving them more, or releasing more of their money, or giving them some other events. But I think we are at the very edge. It could go into a big another war, or could all of a sudden be a peace treaty. But I think we need to say something about the Israel. Israel is about to have elections, and all the opposition people, who people think are moderate, were urging Netanyahu not to accept the ceasefire. And so when he hit Beirut, he didn't do it for his own reasons. He did it for electoral reasons, which is really sad. I mean, people are dying, and the whole conflict is being resurrected because of electoral, wishes of Netanyahu not to lose. That's really sad.
huh. So, okay, for me, when I saw news about sirens in Jordan, I was like, what is going on? Are we back to where we started? One. And two, is Netanyahu now or Israel defying the US orders? You want to put them? Especially about, we had last week that, the news site Axios released some of the conversations between Trump and Netanyahu, and he called him, quote unquote, effing crazy. Everyone hates you. Everyone hates Israel. And then
And I kept you out of jail. If it wasn't for me, you would be in jail.
exactly. So now the US gonna lose their strongest ally because of what's happening. They're definitely not listening to them. They're threatening them. How, and then now their missiles are flying back and forth. What's gonna happen to this supposedly long lasting relationship between the US and Israel?
There's two things, Natasha, that I think we need to pay attention to. Israel is dependent on the U.S., but also Israel has a lot of pride in being, independent. And so I remember once Tom Friedman said, if you ever want to criticize Israel, you should do it with invisible hands. What he means is, if they see the hand that is squeezing them, they get upset. But all of a sudden, spare parts for F-15 are delayed. All kinds of, oh, sorry, that was a computer ditch. It's not, we really love you, but it was just a computer. So the Israelis get the message without actually seeing the hands that are squeezing them. And I think also with Iran and Hezbollah, I think people overstate the fact that Hezbollah is a proxy of Iran, as if Hezbollah doesn't have its own decision-making process. And I think it's also an issue that we need to kind of, the Americans say, we talked to the Lebanese. There's a Lebanese-Israeli ceasefire. Why is the Hezbollah didn't violate the ceasefire? Because they were not part of the ceasefire. They're saying, we will agree to ceasefire when the Israelis withdraw from South Lebanon and stop their attacks. And that has not happened. The best that the Americans could give them was that they will not attack Beirut, and that they violated that, and they attacked Beirut. And that's why the Iranians then hit back, because, again, their agreement with the Americans is that it has to also include Lebanon, and that's what is the biggest problems.
Yeah, but the fact that it's contingent upon whether hitting or not hitting Lebanon means that Iran is also watching for Hezbollah. I mean, in a sense, is, if you want to say air proxy or not, they're, they want to make sure that also Hezbollah, which they're funded by them, is also protected. Isn't that true?
Hezbollah and the Lebanese government are not friends. That's clear. The new government in Lebanon is very much anti-Hezbollah, but it's still a sovereign leadership that says we need to have Israel out of every single inch of Lebanese territory. And Hezbollah said, once they're out, we will join the Lebanese army to create a national security front. So, they're stuck because the Americans and the Israelis are saying, first, Hezbollah has to disarm and then we will withdraw. Hezbollah says, first, Israel has to withdraw from our land and then we will disarm. And so it's a catch-22. Everybody's trying to wait for the other side to stop the war.
Yeah, I mean, I think adding Beirut to the equation complicate the situation for both Iran, the US, and Lebanon. Which is, I don't know, should Iran stay away from Lebanon and not interfere in its affairs, which is actually what's happening now.
There's other things happening. Let's talk about other issues.
Yeah, I mean, for me, watching here the news, I think the biggest one is, at least here in the US, that's been people talking about besides the war, is what happened at 60 Minutes. And 60 Minutes is a very popular show here. And what happened is that Scott Kelly, who's like one of the main, I guess, voices and faces of 60 Minutes, criticized the new management of CBS, led by Barry Weiss, which is known for her pro-Israeli opinion. And because of his criticism, he was fired. And I feel like the appointment of Barry Weiss has been causing a lot of drama at CBS right from the beginning. And this is the latest one. So what do you think now the future of CBS? Is CBS going to keep Barry Weiss after all of this, and where are we going?
I don't know if you saw the Meet the Press interview with Trump, and it ended with him walking out and attacking all the media, NBC, ABC, CNN, but he didn't mention CBS. So clearly Trump feels that CBS is part of the White House communications strategy, unfortunately. The Weiss, I have a very personal story with 60 Minutes, which I would like to talk about. In 1990, actually, when my third child was born, Israel attacked and killed 17 Palestinians in Al-Aqsa Mosque. And it was covered by the media. And then, like a month later, CBS 60 Minutes came, and Mike Wallace asked me to help him. And we had him at our house. We talked to him, and we had like 5 part-timers go to all the Israeli hospitals, because Israel said that stones were coming down and many Israelis were injured. Well, we found none. Not a single Israeli was injured that caused the Israeli army to enter and kill all these people. And so then Mike Wallace and his team went to all the media outlets and saw the pictures. And the pictures were as follows. You will see stones coming down in Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the next scene you see people running away. So the image is that the stones are hitting all these Israelis. But when they actually went to the original tape, they found that the camera, when it started zooming down or panning down, it stopped at a particular point. But when they actually saw it go all the way down to the Western Wall, there was nobody there. And so they were, after doing the research, they were sure that there was nobody there. And so I went with him to an interview with a rabbi who claimed that the mosque sheikhs were saying, kill the Jews, kill the Jews. And a tourist from the Mount of Olives was filming all of this. And he later told the UN and showed the video, and the sheikhs were telling people, step back, don't shoot, don't throw stones, get away, your life is more important. And so the Israelis had shifted this to say that the
Mm.
Muslim sheikhs were calling kill the Jews idbah al Yahud. So Mike Wallace interviewed the rabbi, and he said to him, Arabic, you from Tunisia, what were they saying? He said, oh, they were saying idbah al Yahud, idbah al Yahud. And he said, no, but how many Israelis were injured? And the rabbi says, none. So Mike Wallace says, so how do you explain that? And the rabbi says, it was a miracle. God saved everybody.
Yeah.
But that story on 60 Minutes went out, really basically contradicting the Israeli narrative. And ADL and all these Jewish organizations attacked Mike Wallace and so on. A year later, an Israeli investigation proved every word that Mike Wallace had said. And the same ADL leader wrote to Mike Wallace and apologized for having, said that what he said was wrong. And so I think the relationship between 60 Minutes and the truth, and an arc in this case, shows that why it's important to even be against. I mean, he went against CBS News and their news report for that day. So we needed a healthy 60 Minutes, but unfortunately, this Miss Weiss is an Israeli, defender, and she doesn't care about the truth as much as she cares about defending Israel.
And CBS is not saying that they don't care about the reputation of 60 Minutes, what's been happening. I mean, how long are they gonna keep this?
Look, I mean, the Americans are famous, and I train, and you probably train journalists about the First Amendment. And we say the First Amendment is a unique amendment in the whole world because it actually protects the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, and it denies the Congress from creating any law that would infringe on the freedom of expression. So this is the amazing branding of the U.S. as being a country that defends the freedom of expression. Unfortunately, we cannot keep saying that. We cannot use the First Amendment as a model. Now, Sweden and Norway are a much better model to the world than the U.S. And that's unfortunate because it was really a strong selling point of America is the country that protects the real freedom of expression, freedom of religion.
Well, the Congress still protects it. It's now like what's happening. It's not like illegal, ramification. It's more of a private company that decided to not respect the First Amendment. It's not like you can go to jail now in the U.S. if you say something that you don't.
Yeah, but the FCC could have stopped these purchase of 60 Minutes from Paramount, and now they want to buy CNN. And there's a clear effort to condense media ownership to one or two people so that they can control the narrative. It's really scary.
Does it even really matter now when people don't even watch the news anymore, especially the younger generations? Doesn't even matter in this
I mean, that's true. I mean, on the Palestine-Israel issue, it's clear because the Israelis, in a funny way, did the Palestinians a favor by keeping the foreign press out. It allowed young people with cameras and with telephones to be the journalists, and they, basically unfiltered. So, sometimes you have to be careful when you deny foreign press. You will get a much worse press than you would if you have a more balanced press presence. But I think we need to think of media in a much wider sense. Yes, the AI and social media and digital media are changing the landscape, and but still, you still need really good journalism, and 60 Minutes is really one of the best platforms for really good journalism that I've known.
That's too bad. Who knows what the future holds for 6 Minutes? Again, does it even matter anymore? I mean, that's the question, especially when more and more people are opting to watch the big screen and they're watching the small screen or the medium screen like their iPads. And Another thing that happened also related in the US, I'm just telling you what I've been reading in the US news, is I'm not sure if you've been following the Tribeca festival. There was this comedians, and there's an actor, is Ellen Gold, he's a comedian and an actor, and there's an famous influencer. Her name is Lisa Savitsky, and she's known for being pro-Israel. And they were making remarks on the red carpet of the movie called The Wedding Entertainer, and they started joking about the rape of Palestinians. And one of them said, "Oh, I was raped by Palestinian dogs," and they mentioned, and they were like really mocking story that Nicholas Khrushchev wrote in the New York Times, and we actually talked about it. But Tribeca Festival publicly condemned that, and it's like we should not talk about rape. So I was actually impressed that Tribeca Festival, publicly condemned what they said. I was also shocked that people would be so insensitive and joke about rape in such a public place, and they think they can just get away with it, or what were they thinking? I mean, are they so disconnected that they think that's a good joke? But I don't know. So that's been what we think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are of different, acts of discrimination, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, but exaggerated anti-Semitism, using, I think people, especially because young people are taking power. The Gen Z generation are saying we have to be heard, and they're now voting in much more than before. So I think people are taking them seriously, and I think we will see in the midterms whether they will actually go out to vote. But if they do, what Jersey that just won, I'm interviewing today Chris Rapp, who in Philadelphia went against the Democratic Party and didn't take APAC money. And we have in Michigan, we have so many new faces that are no longer the Palestinian issue is to one or two people like Ilham and Tlaib, but
Yeah.
many more. And even in Texas, the guy running against Pakistan is saying we should be respectful to our neighbors, and I think he has a much more middle of the. I think we'll be seeing changes, and I think the young people have to be credited for stepping up and voting and being heard. Do we want
Yeah,
to talk about the patriarch visiting the
Patriarch.
White
Yeah,
House?
yeah. That was a very let's say interesting story that happened. And I mean, if you can tell us more about it, because you've been covering the issue of Christians, Arab Christians, for a while. But if you can tell us about the Holy Land Christian, the patriarch. What's his name? I have his name somewhere. Theophilus. The second he met Trump at the White House.
Well, yes.
So if you
Well,
can tell us
it's
more
very
about it, yeah.
interesting because if you look at what Israelis always say, that Christians are best protected in Israel, and all the reports in the last 2 or 3 years show that attacks against Christians has been on the increase. And now we have the best proof of that is that the patriarch of the Orthodox Church, the biggest Arab Christian group, is now at the White House asking Trump to help protect Christians. So I thought, but clearly Trump, welcomed the patriarch. Nice, the cross of the. Has two things that he called for Trump to protect Christians, and he called for Trump to respect the Jordanian custodianship of the holy places in Jerusalem, which is quite interesting. Of course, there was some pushback by some Christians in Jordan, especially, saying we don't need the patriarch to defend us, that we are a part of the Jordanian and Arab culture, and because the patriarch is Greek. So there was also kind of a criticism of the visit. But anyway, I think it goes to show that the situation of Christians in Holy Land is not as good as Trump and Netanyahu tries to present them.
Hmm. And speaking of the Holy Land, what's been happening in the West Bank? I mean, things not even in Gaza now. I've been following a lot of news about killing of the baby, the 7-month-old in the car, and the arrest of the Palestinian female soccer players. What is going on?
Well, because the Iran war and the Lebanon situation is basically sucked up all the media oxygen, the Israelis are acting the way they've acted. They're, expanding their presence in Gaza. They continue to shoot and kill Palestinians, even though there is a ceasefire. They continue to prevent the second phase of the Trump plan from being carried out. Now there's meetings in Egypt to try to find ways to overcome the Israeli obstacles. But yes, a 7-month-old child who was killed. Again, the settlers and the army are acting without any accountability. Smotrich, who's this famous, right-wing Israeli minister of finance, was in New York in the Israel parade, which made anyone who participated in that parade look really bad, including the head of the Democratic Party in the Senate and others, and the governor of New York. But, again, we need attention to all these areas, and they're only being attacked now in Albany and Stephen Witkoff, who's busy with Iran, with Russia, Ukraine, and other issues. So there's nobody paying attention to the Gaza and the West Bank situation. And now Egypt and Qatar are trying to reinstate and reinvigorate the Gaza plan, which has been basically dead. Nothing is happening there, unfortunately.
Well, I saw on your account the arrest of the soccer players, and soccer now is or well, I'm too Americanized, is on everyone's mind now because of the World Cup. What is the deal with that? Why would they arrest these two?
Arrest who? Sorry.
They arrested
I'm
two
sorry, I missed
teammates.
that.
I think the
Oh yeah,
some
four Israeli students, women students from Birzeit University, were arrested. Two of them were members of the soccer team, or the Palestinian football team. One of them is an American citizen, and Chris Van Holden in the Senate spoke about why is nobody asking about the whereabouts, because the U.S. Embassy is supposed to be responsible for the whereabouts of Americans. And, they were arrested, held without charge, without trial, like thousands of Palestinians. And for Israel, nobody's an American. Everybody's a Palestinian, even though they carry an American passport. But the dual citizenship for Israel doesn't count. It only counts outside of the areas under Israeli control. We don't know the reason. We've tried to check. One of them is a Christian woman, and the Lutheran Bishop of Jerusalem issued a very strong statement calling for her release. But again, Lutherans don't count. Chris Van Hoven doesn't count. Only the White House counts, and the White House is now embroiled in a problem with Netanyahu over Lebanon and Iran. I don't think he's going to be talking about, a few Palestinians being arrested.
what was the charge? What were they arrested? What did they accuse them of?
Well, they're not charged. We don't know why they were arrested. They're students at the university. They might have been active in protest of some kind, but that doesn't allow Israel to arrest them without charge or trial. But again, this is old British rule that existed before what is called administrative detention, which is kind of a preventative detention. You don't know if somebody's done something, but just to be on the safe side, you take them off the streets and put them in jail. Well, now there's like two, 3,000 in Israeli jails, and they're held not every 6 months. So people are there for years that have not done anything, have not been charged anything, and there's no trial for them. It's a sad situation.
Very sad. And what's been happening with the Christian village, which is like Christian town? It's been a lot of like
Yeah,
food
type.
incursion. Yeah, lately.
Yeah, there's again, we don't know who's going to be putting an end to the Israeli crimes, their war crimes, because by law, the Geneva Convention says you're not allowed to take people out of their homes into Israel, or you're not allowed to collectively punish a community. And settlers are all illegal because they're not allowed to enter a territory that is being occupied. But all these violations are not being followed up by Israel. We have two new people, Natasha, today.
Let's see who's
Lucy,
here. Hi,
Rome.
Lucy. Hi, Lucy. How are you? Good to see you here today. And we have Jack Travels. There's another person, that's BD Gordon. Hi, everyone. Please feel free to jump in if you have any questions. You have Wood here. He's a veteran Palestinian journalist. If you have any questions, feel free to ask him. It's your chance. And I've also to hear from you if you have any suggestions or to improve the show.
I made a plea to Trump, Natasha. I called on Trump because he's a maverick president. I said, you want to talk to the head of Iran, you want to talk to the Khomeini. Why don't you talk to Marwan Barghouti? Marwan Barghouti is the most popular Palestinian leader who's in jail and who has refused to become radical. He continues to support the two-state solution, and he convinced Hamas and Islamic Jihad to sign a document saying we only want to have a Palestinian state next to Israel. So I said, why don't you talk to him or have your people talk to him and give him attention? Because he's under solitary confinement. And in a way, he's like the Nelson Mandela of Palestine. So
Yeah.
I wrote a piece calling on Trump to talk to Barghouti. I don't know if his people
Did
read
you
it,
get
but
any responses? Did you get any
not yet.
responses?
No.
Yeah,
But
feel
I
free to.
think it's the only person who might think of this is Trump. In fact, one time he said something nice about maybe I should talk to Marwan Barghouti like 2 years ago, but I wanted to revive the issue. And his wife is a good friend, he's a lawyer, and Marwan just won the highest number of votes in the Fatah Congress. So he's very popular. He's right there, ready to be the next Palestinian president, but he's in jail, and the Israelis need to kind of respect him and deal with him as a respected counterpart rather than as a prisoner of war or political prisoner.
Yeah, yeah. Will only time will tell what happened, but it's just non-stop and stay safe. Would
Thank
I
you.
know
Next week I'll be in
the
Amman. We'll talk from Amman.
where are you now? Are you still in the US? You still
Yeah,
in the US?
and maybe
Yeah.
maybe we should bring in some new guests.
Yeah, I
Experts
was
as well.
thinking maybe next time we can have a guest with we have 3 people then. We'll coordinate and for anyone who's also watching this or live, we'll also just start our YouTube channel. So if you miss that, you can catch us. Also, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all places. Just catch us there. And thank you for everyone for joining us. And feel free to reach out anytime. And we will see you